Muy buena tarde, bienvenidos a todos a este webinar. El nombre del webinar es How Microsoft Word Changed My Life. El día de hoy estamos con Adam Drummond, quien tiene un título de maestría en computación avanzada en la Universidad de Sheffield. Adam es un recién graduado de la Universidad de Sheffield, habiendo estudiado previamente en el University College Isle of Man. Ingeniero de software de profesión, Adam colabora con varias organizaciones benéficas como el Isle of Man Code Club, desempeñando funciones técnicas, administrativas y comunitarias. Fuera de su trabajo, Adam disfruta practicando el deporte RoundNet y participando en hackatones por toda Europa y el mundo. Welcome, Adam, to this webinar. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you in here. We know that it's a bit late for you, but maybe you can share a bit your experience with us on how Microsoft Word changed your life.
Let me share my screen. You can now see?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Perfect. So, hello, good evening, good afternoon. As Juan said, my name is Adam Drummond. I'm from the Isle of Man, and this is my story from MOS to Master, how Microsoft Word changed my life. So, firstly, who am I? So, as I said, my name is Adam Drummond. I'm 22 years old. I've just finished being an advanced computer science student at the University of Sheffield, and I was previously on the Isle of Man, now in England. I volunteer at 6 different charities, some with children, some with university students, and some with adults. And I am a Microsoft Office Specialist third place world champion. So the agenda for this evening's talk is split into 3 sections. The origin, which is talking about the World Championship. The transition, talking about my life on the Isle of Man following that. And then the future, talking about my master's degree in Sheffield and where I am now. So we start with the origin, the Microsoft Office Specialist World Championship. So this all started back in 2017 in an assembly in my school where we were told about this new exam in Microsoft Word, and it was something I'd never heard of before. But I thought it was an opportunity to try something new, and I thought, what is the worst thing that could happen with me sitting this exam? I suppose I could fail, or it could be a waste of 1 hour. And so I took the practice exam in around November 2017. I got a pretty decent score, and then I did nothing. And then in March 2018, we had the certification exam in my school. And the week before that, I did all the learning from the online platform to learn everything there is about Microsoft Word. And then I took the certification exam and I got the best result in my school. I think it was a score of 963. Now, I've done a lot better since then, but that was the best result in my school. And a few weeks later, I competed in an Isle of Man final, which was 6 students, because that was 3 from each school that took part. And we each did an exam in our chosen software, so mine was Microsoft Word. I received the top score in my country, which was 957. Yes, lower than the first one. But it was enough for me to be crowned the Isle of Man champion, which is a name I still have because they have not done an Isle of Man final since. And so moving on, the next step was known as the 4 Nations Championship, where I was from the 5th nation. Now, this was the national finals for the UK and Ireland. So it covers England, Scotland, Wales, the 3 countries in the UK, as well as Ireland. However, the Isle of Man wasn't counted in this, so technically it was the 5 nations. I travelled to London with my teacher from school, in June 2018, and I had no idea what to expect. But on the day, I took part in a group challenge, which my team won, where I had to use Minecraft with Microsoft Word to make a plan for something that I can't quite remember. This was 7 years ago. As well as this, we undertook a fancy Microsoft Office specialist exam, and within that, I scored the highest score, which I found out later was 88%, and that made me the British national champion. Now, up until this point, I still didn't really know what was going on. I'd never heard of this before. I'd never taken part in it before. No one from the Isle of Man had ever done this before. But here I was, suddenly crowned as the champion of the UK. And so, obviously, the next step was the World Championship, where I represented the Isle of Man, the United Kingdom, and Ireland on the global stage in Orlando, Florida, back in July and August 2018. Now, this, as with everything else in this process, was a brand new experience for me, and it was one that I really enjoyed and still treasure to this day. I got to meet people from all over the world, including Mexico, the United States, Europe, Australia, Asia, Africa, really everyone from around the world. After all, it was the World Championship. Now, during this 4 or 5 day experience, we did a lot. We got to take a certification exam in, for me, Microsoft Word. We had a party, which, as a 15-year-old, this was the biggest party I had ever been to and the most exciting party I had ever been to. I got a day out at Universal Studios Orlando, and then we were crowned the winners, or the winners were crowned. And for me, I came third place, which, coming from a small island of 85,000 people, competing against, I think it was 750,000 other people, is crazy. I'm one small person and I'm taking part against more people that live in my country. But it was a great experience, and one that, well, I didn't want to forget. And here are some more photos from that time, me posing with my medal, as well as me on stage winning the award. But I hadn't had enough. For the next year, I had another go. This year, we didn't have an Isle of Man national final, so I had to enter the UK qualifier just like everybody else in the UK and Ireland. This time, I took part for XL, and my qualifying exam for XL, I got a score of 1,000, the best score you can get. And I remember sitting in my garden. It was a nice sunny day in May 2019 when I got an email from my teacher who had let me know that I'd qualified for the UK national finals once again. And from there, I was ecstatic. I once again travelled to London with my teacher to take part in the Four Nations final in London again. This time, whilst I didn't win the group project, it was the same project, but this time I had to use Excel. I did, in fact, win the Excel national finals. And so I was able to travel to New York City to compete in the Microsoft Office Specialist World Championship. And taking part in that competition in New York was just as good as I remembered it from in Orlando, except we were in the middle of the city. Now, this was a new experience for me. I had been to Orlando before, but I had never been to New York before. So taking part in this competition in a brand new city with a whole load of new friends and friends I'd met the year before, it was a wonderful experience. And here are some more photos again from that event. There's me in New York, and there's me with Juan from Mexico. And now we move on to the next section in this talk, which is the transition. So this is my life on the Isle of Man following the World Championship, but before where I am now in Sheffield. So we start back in 2020. The pandemic had struck the world and no one really knew what was going on. The World Championship couldn't happen in the way we expected it to, and many in-person events transitioned to webinars or Zoom calls or just online phone calls, internet, which was great for me because I was stuck on a small island and wasn't able to attend as many events because I couldn't afford to travel to the UK. But with online events, I could attend as many as I wanted at any time of the day, such as like right now, at midnight to my time, but I'm able to attend and speak. I attended some online webinars for my Certiport solution partner in the UK, the company that ran the UK national finals. And they were running some online talks about certification. And I joined in on some of these and met a student from the UK who was interested in Microsoft Office Specialist. And his school had a radio station. Now, this was a new experience for me, but this individual reached out to me along with his teacher to be like, hello, we want to interview you for our school radio because we think what you're doing is great. And there's me on the right being interviewed by them with my big Isle of Man flag in the background. And I didn't know it at the time, but that call actually started a big process that is what led to me being here today. And so I did that interview and I joined an organization in the UK that then ran a event during something called Hacktoberfest in 2020. Now, Hacktoberfest is an online open source festival where individuals are encouraged to take part in online open source projects using GitHub. Now, throughout the month of October, so right now, Hacktoberfest 2025 is happening. Throughout the month, there are events and sort of mini hackathons where you want to code things and push things to GitHub repositories. And I happened to join this in 2020. And from that, in early January 2021, I found an organization called Major League Hacking. Now, this organization runs hackathons. They partner with hackathons, they run their own hackathons, as well as running mini internships for students across the world. Through Major League Hacking, I received a newsletter to join an event called Local Hack Day Build. Now, in January 2021, the Isle of Man entered a new lockdown, and I was stuck with many hours of the day and not really knowing what to do. So I thought, hey, I may as well join this event. I don't really know what it is, but it sounds like fun, and I have a whole month of free time to kill. And so I joined that online event, and it was a full week of workshops and live streams and mini events and things to do and have fun. And I thought, wow, I finally found my community. Now, that was only the start of the spiral. From there, I continued attending these events. They happened around 3 times a year back then. Now they happen every month of the year. And on top of that, I learned of a thing called a hackathon, an online coding competition where I could take part and I could even win prizes. And I took part in one every single weekend for the majority of 2021. Following the hackathons, which some of them I won, as you can see on the image here, I was able to build up a small community within the larger community focused around IKEA sharks. Now, this was very random, but it was a great way to make some friends over the internet in a really uncertain time for the world. And building that community taught me lots of skills, which led to me presenting at an online conference in August 2021. Now, I couldn't find any pictures or screenshots from that conference, so you will just have to believe that I did it. But I did a talk with another community leader about the challenges behind building a community and why building a community isn't always easy. So, following on from that, in around 2021, in September, I started my undergraduate degree at University College Isle of Man, and that was me set for the next 3 years. In 2022, I continued taking part in online hackathons, winning some awards throughout the year. And then in June 2022, I attended my first in-person hackathon themed event, and this was known as GitHub Field Day United Kingdom. This was an in-person unconference event held in the City of London where I could network with other hackathon community builders and listen to discussions and talks from people much more knowledgeable than me. And throughout this unconference, and an unconference is similar to a conference, except there are no planned talks. Everything is thought up about on the day, meaning that everyone is really involved and engaged. On the day, I learned about the GitHub Campus Experts Program. Now, this is a program for community leaders across universities or other campuses over the world, where it can be someone leading events, building a community, or just spreading the word of GitHub on their campus. And I was inspired by this program, so much so that I chose to join the program in 2022, or I applied, and I was one of thousands of people that applied to join it. And alongside this, I was working on my bachelor's degree in computer science, which lasted from 2021 until 2024. Also in 2022, I earned the MLH Top 50 Award. This recognizes 50 inspirational people in the hackathon scene across the world that Major League Hacking think are worth sharing about, talking about. And being from the Isle of Man, this was a really prestigious thing to receive because not many people had heard of Major League Hacking over there. It wasn't a very well-known name as it is in the United States. And here's some pictures from that year. So you can see there's me with the award. They sent out these really nice graphics. And then on the right is me at the Microsoft venue in London where the unconference was held. And the story continues to 2023, where I had a lot of travel. So these bullet points are not in order, but I organized a trip for 15 people from the Isle of Man Code Club in around April. We went off to a competition where I had 2 teams, and I had 3 teams in 2 competitions, and we won both competitions, which was a really fantastic event. Unfortunately, due to safeguarding concerns, I can't share any pictures with those children in it. But it was quite an achievement for me to fully coordinate this trip without losing any children and making sure that they had the best time possible while still being prepared to enter their competition. I also traveled to HackCon in New York, United States, where I led a discussion, and you can see on the picture I had quite a big turnout. Now, HackCon has become one of the best parts of my year. It is a conference held upstate in New York, where organisers from different conferences across the globe come together, organisers from different hackathons across the globe come together to talk about what they do. And within this, you have small talks, long talks, discussions, and it is just a highlight of my year because I get to see people from across the globe that I won't see anywhere else. In November of 2023, I co-organized my first GitHub Field Day event, and this one was in Berlin, Germany. Now, this was my first time organizing an event in a different country, which definitely brought its own challenges with it because I didn't speak the language. I didn't know any contacts out there or anything to do. And so I was very thankful for having people from Berlin and other parts of Germany to help me run the event. And then also in 2023, I spoke on a number of panels. So one of my favorites was known as the Isle of Man Youth Conference, where I spoke in front of around 1,000 students aged 16, 17, or 18 on the Isle of Man, as well as speaking on some to more knowledgeable attendees, such as at a conference called Digital Isle, focusing on technology in the Isle of Man. And here are some photos. So the left photo is me speaking at the Unconference in Berlin. And the right photo is me at the Digital Isle conference on the Isle of Man. And then finally, in this section, we look at 2024, the year where I graduated. I finished my undergraduate degree from University College Isle of Man, and this picture is me presenting my dissertation to my supervisor. But I did so much more in that year than just finish my degree. And again, these bullet points are not in time order, but I traveled on the United States of America last year. So not only did I attend the conference in New York again, but I also visited a few new states. So I flew through Atlanta, Georgia, to get to Vancouver in Canada. So my first time in Canada, which was really nice, although it rained for the entire day I was there. And then the day after that, I visited Seattle, Washington, to meet my program manager from GitHub Education. Now, again, this is an opportunity that is based all the way back from taking part in the World Championship in 2018. Everything I've talked about so far with my journey has come from that. So I also organized a supercar event in that year in partnership with McLaren in the UK. We brought one of their cars across to the Isle of Man, and we took it around some of the schools to show the kids all about engineering and why engineering is so important. I also marshaled at some bike races. So we have a pretty famous bike race on the Isle of Man known as the Tourist Trophy. It makes our population double in size for 2 weeks of the year. And after growing up with this my entire life, I thought it would be really nice to give back and volunteer at the event. And so for about 2 weeks, I was on post on a normal road next to my high school, which was closed, and motorbikes drove along at around 200 miles per hour. This was something very different. This is not technology. This is not sitting in front of a computer. This is being outside, watching bikes and making sure they're safe. And finally, in 2024, the big point is I left the Isle of Man. Before we get onto that, here are some photos. On the left is me graduating from my degree. I did some work with the marketing department at my university, and one of the challenges they set to me was they gave me a disposable camera that you can see, and they said, take a photo on the stage at graduation. I don't think anybody on the stage knew I was going to do this, so it was quite the surprise. And then on the right is me at the supercar event where I was presenting in front of secondary school children aged around 13, introducing the concept of McLaren to them ahead of the event. And so now we move on to the third section, the future. My master's degree in Sheffield. Now, this is leading more towards the present day, which is really exciting. And we start with my new life in Sheffield. So this continues on from me leaving the Isle of Man as I move to Sheffield, England. Now, if you don't know where Sheffield is, if you pull up a map of England and put your finger right in the middle, you're probably quite close to where I am. Now, Sheffield is where I am right now, but it isn't actually new to me. So I have family here. So I've been to Sheffield before, which was really exciting coming to study here because I knew the city. As I mentioned earlier, I was studying a master's degree in advanced computer science at the University of Sheffield, which is a one-year course which starts in September and finishes in September. So I have only finished about 3 weeks ago, and I'm still waiting to receive my results. During my time in Sheffield, I've been able to take part in many new things that I will talk about soon. And I've continued traveling the world, going to Europe as well as America, and I'd like to go further. One key topic of my year in Sheffield has been attending, organising, and winning hackathons. Across the year in Sheffield, I attended around 8 hackathons in the UK, ranging as far north as Scotland and as far south as London. These were great events because they were my first in-person hackathons, and what was even greater is that I started winning from my very first in-person hackathon, where I made an automatic smoothie machine. As well as that, I ran 2 of my own hackathons in Sheffield, and the picture here is me running Hack Sheffield 9 in Sheffield, which was, we believe, the 3rd biggest event in the United Kingdom, with around 250 to 300 people in attendance. And I also ran a mini hack day later on in the year. But not only did I attend hackathons in the UK and run my own, I also travelled to different events in Europe, such as Hack UPC in Barcelona at the Universitat Polytechnic. And here are some more photos of me at hackathon. So the one on the left was when I won the prize of 2nd place at my very first hackathon, Hack Knots. And the photo on the right is me at an event called Quackathon, which is named after ducks because it's at Dundee University Computer Society, which makes an acronym that looks like the word duck. Now, on top of this, I also do a lot of work with the technical services department at my university. I've taken up a passion for operating lights within our student nightclub, and I won an award for being the most enthusiastic person there. This leads to me being awake until 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 in the morning, because we build the event, we run the event, and then we take down the event. I've been fortunate enough to run big events for the end of year social, and as well as graduation week, we put on events for students to bring their parents to. Now, more recently, since September, I started to manage these events where I have been in charge of all of the tech within one club night. Now, this is a new challenge because it means not only am I thinking about just lights, but also about sound, about any additional effects. and DJs, even ones that don't turn up. But what's really interesting is that this is all extracurricular. No matter how many hours I put into this, it does not count towards my degree. And despite that, I enjoy it just as much. Now, one thing else I forgot to mention earlier is how being in Sheffield links to the World Championship. And I think back to November 2023, when I was at the field day in Berlin. I sat down with one of my colleagues who basically told me, you need to leave the Isle of Man. What I didn't realize on the Isle of Man is it's a very closed environment. You can't learn what you can't see. And there was a lot I could not see, such as this technical services. Now, whilst I knew hackathons existed, I couldn't see how great they were in person. And so, had I not been at that field day, I probably would not have ended up in Sheffield. And the reason I was at that field day was because I was a campus expert, and I was a campus expert because I attended the previous field day. I attended that field day because I'd done hackathons. I attended hackathons through Hacktoberfest, and I found out about Hacktoberfest thanks to doing an interview about MOS. And then I did that interview because I did the World Championship, which really shows just how far the World Championship can go to changing your life. And finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the non-technical things I've done. Now, if you had said to me before I came to Sheffield, in a year you will be traveling to play sports, I would have laughed at you. I would never have believed you. However, I now play a sport called roundnet, which you might not have heard of. It's similar to volleyball, but instead of hitting a ball over the net, you hit a ball onto a net. Now, I found out about this from being at the University of Sheffield. We have a roundnet society, and I joined it, telling myself, you're at university for 1 year, you should do a sport and you should keep it up. And thankfully, I chose one that I really enjoy. In April last year, we went on tour, as it's known. And this is where we get to go to Portugal and play the sport on the beach, in the sun, although it did rain for 1 day, and get to meet people from across the UK who also take part in this sport. Not only this, I got to play at tournaments up and down the UK. So I've met people through that. There are about 5 or 6 different roundnet clubs that we know of in the country. And I've got to play sports with them in all these different cities, such as London and Birmingham. And just this weekend, I took part in my latest tournament, which was the British Nationals, and I came 14th in my division. Now, not very many people can say that they played at the British Nationals in their sport, because most sports are so big that you aren't even going to get close to the British, like the national level competition. But I got to take part in that. And in London, I got to take part in what is called a major tournament, which is one of the big few ones held each year. And I look forward to doing more of this and practicing the sport and hopefully spreading the word of the existence of roundnet, because not very many people know it. And with that, I would just like to say thank you, or gracias. This has been From MOS to Master, how Microsoft Word changed my life.
Thank you so much, Adam. And congratulations on definitely great way of life. I think that you have fun all of the times, and that also gives you a lot of, like, I don't know, probably motivation to keep going on the school and on life overall. But thank you so much for your presentation today. There is a couple of questions from the public. Uh, One of them is probably sad, but why did you left the Isle of Man? I think that you already gave a bit of an explanation, but if you want to go a bit deeper in there, it would be great.
Yeah, so I love the Isle of Man. I always have done. Um, as you saw in some of those photos, I did have the Isle of Man flag. But unfortunately, it's very small. If you've never seen it on a map, I recommend looking it up and looking just how small it is compared to the rest of the world. It's tiny. And there are not many opportunities out there. So I couldn't really study a master's degree over there. I could never have found out about RoundNet. And being able to travel to things like hackathons or things in Europe becomes really expensive very quickly. Sometimes you can get flights on a low cost carrier for £25. Sometimes it will cost you £100 one way. And whilst I'm currently in a transition phase, having finished my degree, I'm currently living between the Isle of Man and the UK, which is what I'd like to do. It gives me a lot of opportunities, but also means I can stay at home. But it means I'm having to fly backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. I flew over here last Friday to play in the sports tournament, and I'm flying home on the coming Friday. And then I fly back over here in about 2 weeks to then go back home a week and a half later. So I would love to be in both countries at once, but it is incredibly difficult to do so.
Yeah, definitely. It is what it is. We have also plenty of congratulations. Somebody say, gracias, eres un ejemplo a seguir. It's thank you. You're a person to follow its advice,
Oh, thank
probably.
you.
But yeah. Also, one other question that probably I also have is, how do you pay your expenses for that much travel?
So, what I try to do for a lot of things is find an opportunity that covers the way to attend something. So, for example, the HackCon conference, I was able to attend through the GitHub Campus Experts program. They pay for 4 people to travel to the event each year, and I traveled 2 times for them and loved it so much that I would decided I had to save up my money to attend next year. Likewise, many hackathons have what is called travel reimbursements, where if you go and submit a project, they will cover a part of your travel. And I think really I was quite fortunate in being that I had a summer internship when I was at home over the past 2 summers, not this year, but the one before and the one before that. And this meant I was able to save up a lot of money so that now when I'm in the UK, I'm able to spend it traveling, going to all these different events and really enjoying my money rather than spending it on alcohol like a lot of people my age would do over here. And as well as that, I had a scholarship from the university because of my great undergraduate grade. And all of that combined means I'm able to travel not all the time, but quite frequently when I see an event I really want to go to.
Great, that's amazing. Good economy in there. But somebody else asks if you have any advice for the students of our university. Probably you live in a different context, but I think that you have experienced many things across the globe that probably you can share a piece of advice for the students of this university.
Yeah, so my one piece of advice to anyone who ever asks is always take whatever opportunities you can see. They might not be easy and they might take a lot of work, but just one small opportunity could lead to a whole world of opportunities. Like, for example, I decided to take the Microsoft Office exam in 2017. I'm now here 8 years later in a different country, having traveled to all sorts of different events, done public speaking, and I even got to speak at the graduate ceremony for the Isle of Man last week, which is this photo on the right. And I concluded that speech with one short sentence. There's a whole world out there just waiting for you to explore it. And really, this is what I think everyone should follow. Don't just look within, see what there is outside that you can attend. If you don't think you can afford to attend something, reach out to the organizers. You never know, they might be able to help you attend if you're really interested. But just take whatever opportunity comes at you because it could change your life forever.
That's great advice, definitely. Just a single exam change your life, apparently, and then more opportunities come. But yeah. Another question is, what has been the biggest challenge during all of the experience that you have acquired?
That's a big question. I think there have been a lot of challenges to get to where I am today. So, leaving the Isle of Man, for example, was a very big challenge because it's what I know and it's what I grew up on. But I chose to take the gamble and come and study a degree in the UK, telling myself it's only 1 year. If you don't enjoy it, it is what it is. But I think the biggest challenge has been keeping the dedication to continue doing things even when times are rough. If I, especially on a cold winter's day when all I want to do is stay in bed, I think it's really important to get out of bed, get work done, put in a few hours, do something to just make it better. But there are, as I say, many challenges, and you've just got to make sure you don't let the little ones get to you so that when you have a big one, you can focus on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody else says, congrats, you have worked hard and it pays off. Um, I share that too. Definitely. Congratulations. Maybe another question that the people have
Mhm.
is like, why did you choose Word, or what did make you choose Word instead of PowerPoint or Excel?
So this is a funny story. My school didn't realize that you could pick different ones. On the Isle of Man, it was sponsored by a single company, and they approached my school saying, "Look at this, what you can do for Microsoft Word. Isn't it really cool?" And so all my school thought we were permitted to do was Word. So my school made everyone do Microsoft Word, um, and then we didn't get the opportunity to do Excel. Because I did the World Championship and really enjoyed it, forced my teacher to let me do more exams. And so the next exam I did was Word Expert, in which I got my lowest ever score of 888. I then did Excel the following year, and then after the World Championship, did Excel Expert. And then in 2020, the week before the pandemic caused us all to go working from home, I did the Microsoft PowerPoint exam for the first time. And unfortunately, the World Championship got cancelled that year, so I was unable to enter for PowerPoint. Then later on, I did the Access exam. And then even later on, more recently, I've updated some of them to do 2019 or Office 365 exams. And so I'm really happy to say that now I actually have a score of 1000 across every single Microsoft Office app.
All right, great insight there. I don't think we have like any more questions. Um just from the university. Thank you so much for attending and sharing
Of
your
course.
knowledge with all of the people in here. I think that it's great advice for the students that probably are like deciding on what to do next, probably what career to choose, and good luck for your job search in the UK. I think we will share like a diploma with you. Let me ask. I think you have a very last question that I think it's a very interesting one. That if the value of the question is that if the value of mastering Word lies in productivity, what has been the task or project in your professional life where mastery of the tool allowed you to do something that without that level of mastery would have been completely impossible or unimaginably difficult to achieve?
Wow, that is a big question. I think within my volunteering work, I did a lot of marketing and press at one point, and I wrote a press release to send out to, and I ran an awards night where I had to send an invitation to around 50 different people. And within that, I really used everything I learned during the World Championship, because not only did I have to cover formatting and like printing and page layout like you do in the normal exams, but like they had at the World Championship in my year, I had to use the mail merge function within Word in order to add conditional questions based on who I was sending it to. Was I sending it to someone receiving an award? Was I sending the message to a parent? Was I sending it to a distinguished guest? And for each of these people, they all received a different style of invitation, and then it all automatically sent it out via their email. Now, without the Word Microsoft Office specialist, I don't think I would have ever known that I would have handwritten or hand typed 50 different invitations to different people.
Yeah, great. Or probably you have just ended doing it on Python or some or somewhere
maybe.
else. But yeah, I think that there is a lot of functionalities that you don't discover until you go really deep
Exactly.
on the program. Okay, so Marta will read some words for you. It's just like a certificate of recognition for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Marta, por favor.
Thank you so much, Adam, for your participation in the webinar today.
Thank you too.
So we share the following like certificate with Adam. Again, thank you so much for sharing with us all of your experience on this From MOS to Master webinar, and good luck on your next projects. En español, agradecemos la participación de Adam por tan excelente participación. Esperamos que esta experiencia para nuestros universitarios sea de gran utilidad. Se presenta el siguiente reconocimiento a Adam Drummond, que bueno, es maestro en computación, por su destacada participación con el tema From MOS to Master, How Microsoft Word Changed My Life, llevado a cabo el día 14 de octubre de 2025 dentro del ciclo de webinars y conferencias conmemorativas al 50 aniversario de la Dirección de Tecnologías de la Información y Comunicaciones. Toluca del Lerdo, 14 de octubre de 2025, Patria, Ciencia y Trabajo.
Agradecemos a todos su participación. Ay, ya cerraron la sesión.
Ya.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you too. Muchas gracias.
Congratulations. Very well.
Thank you, Adam. See you soon, hopefully.
Goodbye. Buenas noches.